You're never going to find a company that did better marketing than Nike. I knew a lot of believers there. That's where you went to make money. And you got to work with all the state-of-the-art equipment. You got to work with the best marketing teams in the world. If you wanted to go out and say, I want to go ahead and make some high-quality Christian content, you might be like, wait, what? That doesn't exist. What in the world can my kids watch that I don't have to fix right after they watch it? Our kids need play, and they need a place to have play that's redemptive. And screen times will be part of their world. And so we need to create.
We're looking at like Christian culture, and then Christian culture not having what we need.
Yeah.
Like we want good movies, we want good music, we want good shows, we want good apps, we want good things. We want these things that we can put our kids onto as well.
Right.
Because I think when we're looking at this, I'm not just thinking about myself, I'm thinking about my child.
Right.
And a verse came to me as I was sitting here thinking about this podcast episode. It was like, why do the way of the wicked prosper? Why do all the faithless live at ease? You have planted them, and they have taken root. They grow and bear fruit. You're always on their lips, but far from their hearts, in Jeremiah. And when you're thinking about that, you're like, man, why do they get all the money for all the budgets, and we just don't get to see this stuff?
Yeah, there's a bad rap with Christian creativity and the stuff that comes out of, as far as Christian content. And a lot of people are like, well, it's bad storytelling. They play it way too safe, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side, limited funding, limited resources, limited talent pool. And then the side that most that complain about it don't consider is a very limiting audience, very harsh critics. Now, what does that all mean for the adult who's already been saved? Not much. You just kind of go with it, right? But for the children who have this alternative beckoning them, it'd be nice to say, hey, but look at this amazing stuff over here. So we decided to bring somebody on that can speak to this from an additional Christian creative standpoint. And that is our new friend, Matt Wolf. He's the marketing manager and senior product manager at TruPlay. And he's a Christian dad with strong values and a mission to protect children from harmful content and provide a better alternative. So welcome, Matt.
Yeah, Matt, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Shay, Michelle, I'm really excited to be here and talk about this. So I am a parent, so I'm pretty passionate about this.
Now as a parent, I've heard rumors. Do you homeschool?
Okay. So my wife homeschools the kids. So
Okay.
let's be clear. So what my role is, yes, I do as much as I can, but my work keeps me really busy. But the great thing about my work is it's about my kids, which you'll find out. But yes, we homeschool all three of our littles, and I do have an older daughter who's all grown up and she's married. So we didn't homeschool her, but man, I sure wish we would have.
Right.
So I'm excited to hear kind of what your thoughts are, because you also worked on the secular side as a believer at places like Nike. So what's it been like for you, to kind of migrate from, I guess, that side of the working world to where you are now at TruPlay?
Yeah, it is a reality that for the most part, all the best creativity and even Christian creatives, but the secular market has really owned that for the majority of I know my whole life. And I think not to get too deep into history, but for the better part of our country, we've been predominantly a Christian country. So content was always pretty safe and pretty wholesome. And then in the mid 1900s started to really change. And it's like, wow, we went ahead and jumped off a cliff. And our content it's not healthy for our kids. I mean, we have all sorts of stats that show suicide, depression are all-time highs. We have, for the first time in our country, like less than 50% of the people say that they believe in Jesus. And for children, that's even younger. And if you look at creativity and content, well, as Christians, for the most part, we've been building that for secular companies, and it's been okay until really recent in the past few decades, where we've seen content get darker. We've seen more bad actors being a part of that content, more agendas being driven, and as parents, it's like screen time, content, movies, digital play is always going to be a part of our lives and our kids' lives. And so, but we kind of, as a parent, I'm like, where in the world do I let my kids go that's safe? and not just safe, like any stranger can kind of be safe, but it doesn't mean they're being wholesome. Like, where can I go where my kids can get redemptive screen time?
Mm.
And it's just not there. And in Christian content has really, for the most part, been synonymous with like cheesy, low budget, and you hand it to your kids and they're like, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to go
Right.
watch this or play this. So it's been a void. Um, and so that's something that at the company we're working at, we are hiring top talent and we are raising that bar. And we've started to see that. So you have The Chosen has come out.
Right.
That is top tier content. A long time ago when Mel Gibson put out The Passion of the Christ, that was like the very first time, like, holy cow, you can do high quality Christian content.
Yeah.
And Veggie Tales was good for its time.
Right.
And it was fun. My kids kind of grew up watching that. I grew up watching it. I still, it's like a guilty pleasure sometimes. I like watching Larry the Cucumber. But we saw Jesus Revolution come out, and then the Wing Feather Saga. These are all, you're starting to see this really amazing Christian creative talent and amazing storytelling. And we're part of that story. Like, what we're doing is going to be part of that story.
Yeah. Yep. I think part of it might be all of the accessibility. Like before we were talking, you guys are just now setting up your own kind of studio there in the office. And we were telling you, hey, have you heard of the ATEM Mini? Have you heard of the Blackmagic Design setup that
Yeah.
puts a switcher for a couple $100s in your studio?
Yeah.
That used to be a barrier of like 60, 70, $100,000. And now you can have it at, like, any YouTuber can save up and get one pretty quickly. And so it gives access where there wasn't.
I think it's a little less of a barrier now, and I can get to that. But I think in the past, if you wanted to make good money and you wanted to create a personal brand for yourself as a creative, you had to go work for some of these big creative companies. I spent time at Nike. I mean, you're never going to find a company that did better marketing than Nike. I worked along some of the best talent in the world. And, I knew a lot of believers there and just wonderful people. But that's where you went to make money. And you got to work with all the state of the art equipment. You got to work with the best marketing teams in the world. I mean, you get to meet the celebrities, and that's where that's all at. And so if you wanted to go out and say, I want to go ahead and make some high quality Christian content, you might be like, wait, what? That doesn't exist. And you're not going to make money. And so budgets have been really low.
Right.
I mean, it takes a phenomenal amount of money to produce something high quality. And that is the standard. Even Christians, even if they don't say it, that is the standard of content. And so, like, I believe as a Christian culture for a long time is when we look at nonprofit, or we look at, like, even giving to missionaries, sometimes like, well, we got some used tea bags, we'll send them. It's like, well, why would you not send them the best brand new tea in the world?
Right,
I mean, like,
right.
they're doing one of the most important jobs you could imagine. And I think that's been a huge barrier in the past. But I would say that over the past, especially 5 years, we have seen companies take a step of faith. The Chosen, they went ahead and just put out a 15-minute pilot and raised like $50 million. Right. And it's like, whoa, well, they're hungry. Like, and so with $50 million, you can actually go recruit top tier talent out of some of these great companies. And these are Christians working in these companies, and it's fine. You can be a Christian working anywhere and share the gospel. But I do believe it's becoming harder for them as we see some of these, some of this content. Boy, it's not safe anymore. And so these Christian creatives are looking for people like us or The Chosen or Wing Feather to work for. And you started to see companies take a step, go out there and claim this market. And you're starting to see some really great storytelling, really high quality. So when our product comes out and it's in the hands of kids and adults, like, you're going to see, like, this is beautiful, high quality content and great storytelling. We hired a professional author who wrote our IP. We're hiring from some really great brands, and God's brought us some amazing talent. And it's like, and we're able to pay them well. And And I think that's exactly what the Lord would want. That's exactly what the Bible teaches, a worker's worth their wages. And so we're able to do that now. And so that barrier is being removed, but there is still a barrier because, you know, I still think people are like, hey, I want this high quality content. I want a really great alternative that's redemptive for my kid. Oh, but you're going to charge me for it?
Right.
Right.
It's like, well, you can't really have you have to invest money. That's a reality. And so
Yeah.
that's part of it. But you also want to invest in a company that their mission statement is about, hey, we want to see the faith of your children grow. Like that's our calling. That's our mission. And that's really where you want to invest your money. So
No, I like that. I like the investment of money because I mean, are our kids worth it?
Mm-hmm.
That's the question. Are they worth it? Um,
mhm.
I'm gonna go here because I'm a little disappointed in like Jesus Revolution, not the movie, not that it was
Mhm.
bad, but the people's attitude towards it. We're constantly screaming, we want better content, we want better this, we want better that, and then it comes out and everybody's like, oh well, or like The Chosen.
Yeah.
Well, is it they're adding a lot, and it's like okay, come on, where are we gonna be here? We
Yeah.
want good content, but you don't want good content, or you don't want the content that's being put out there, even if they add a little bit to
Yeah.
it. Because when you bring in an author, what are like the tiers? Like, what are you putting there to like, what is the level? I guess a better way, what kind of Bible is being put there?
or how is
I'll try to say this
godliness incorporated?
right. How is godliness
Yeah.
incorporated?
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, no, that's an excellent question. And I have spent a lot of time thinking about this because storytelling is really important. And you're right. And it does seem, and it does sadden me that it does seem like even in the evangelical Christian community or any denominations, or we tend to eat our own sometimes. I don't understand that.
Right.
And we tend to be really critical. And I think part of that is it's really from good intentions. And this is part of how I'm answering this question is we truly do have core doctrines in the Bible that are not up for debate. Like you
Right.
don't get creative liberties on who the person of Jesus Christ is.
Right.
You don't get to retell that story and change the meaning. And so it's really good that we're critical and we're safeguarding and we're watching that tower. But we tend to become almost like fundamentalists in how we interpret things instead of just like the Bible itself. And so okay, so what do we use? We use the Bible, the Holy
Right.
Bible. So, and we get our core doctrines from that. And so we are a benefit corp company. And so we are for profit. But in our benefit corp, we literally state that we believe in the inerrancy of the Bible. Like it is God's truth to mankind. And so we're not going to shift from that. And so when we do our storytelling, I've thought a lot about this. I mean, you are allowed to take creative liberties as a creative. There's some things in the Bible that you don't get to. Like I said, there's core doctrines, but there are some things you can take creative liberties in. And I think The Chosen did this with some of their characters. And, I'm not taking a stance on this per se, but like, the character of Matthew, the way they, how they portrayed him. Well, I mean, the Bible doesn't tell everything about who Matthew is, right? He just says he's a tax collector and some other things. So there are some creative liberties, but you can never change the meaning or the purpose, or you can't touch those core doctrines. And so, and I also think about like symbolism versus imagery, right? So like the cross is a symbol that means something. And communion is a symbol of communion with Christ. The cross is a symbol of Jesus dying on the cross. Baptism is a symbol of rebirth. You don't get to change and take creative liberties and change the meanings of those symbols. Those are symbols of who God is and who we are. But imagery, well, parables is imagery. And so he was speaking to a culture and a time and telling stories to give principles and truths and meaning. And so those are things that as creatives, if you're talking about imagery, well, tell your story, but we can't change the meaning. And so we have developed this really cool IP called the Rimverse. And it's where you have these anthropomorphic animals that are, animals that are humans, and they all have their own journey in faith, and it's kind of a fantastical, adventurous world where the Bible is true, evil is real, God is real, but we're telling the story from an allegorical place. And so you're going to get a lot of imagery in there. You're going to have the book of words, you're going to have the Bible, you're going to have, evil villains that represent certain things. And our characters themselves have their own stories. For example, Lucas is one of the favorites. He's a skunk with a crocodile outfit like Iron Man. And so, but he's actually not necessarily a believer in his journey yet. And in his journey, his brother dies, and his mom says, well, he's up in heaven. And so he's like, I'm going to go find him. And so he builds his rocket suit to get to heaven. And his friend knows, like, I don't think that's what your mom meant. He's in heaven. He's like, I got to go find him. And he's going to find out his faith. He's going to figure out that heaven's a real place, and that it was made, and that Jesus is there and he loves you. And so this is all imagery and allegory to tell the story. I mean, Chronicles of Narnia was a phenomenal storytelling. So I think that we can't hamstring our creatives when it comes to storytelling. Wingfeather, another amazing example of storytelling and imagery, but we're not changing core doctrine. Right. You can't do that. That's the Bible. So that's where we get our inspiration. Our authors get their inspiration from the Bible. They have to believe the Bible is absolutely the word of God, and there's core doctrines in it that you don't get to change. That's off limits, but we're going to tell the story about it. We want kids to hear it, engage with it. So
no, I like that. No, because I just wanted to, I want people to put the checks and balances in place. I'm okay with like going off and adding some imagery to it. The keywords, I like that imagery. Mm-hmm. It really, because let's be real, if you just tell the story straight through. Although I will say there's some good kids content out there that my daughter watches, but let me tell you something. They're still taking some liberties.
Right.
Sure.
You'll watch you'll watch the story on Minnow or Yippee or more Minnow, and you're like, okay, but you know what? At the end of the day, our daughter sits there and she's like, oh, let's play Joseph or let's play David and she runs around the house and she's got the basic story down. Yeah. She's got the basic the idea, and it's beautiful to watch those things. So I'm gonna ask another one. Is that cool?
Mm-hmm. Go for it. I took 2 in a row. Go for it.
All right, cool. So you at the beginning I said you homeschool. Okay, I was a little off on that one, but that's cool. And he said I have an older daughter. We didn't homeschool, which we would have. So as a dad, I want to know that heart. Yeah. I want to know that heart of why you would jump ship from a place like Nike and then go into something like this. What was the heart behind that?
Oh man, that's easy. It was crazy how hard that decision was, though. And at the time, I was actually working for a pretty amazing healthcare company. So I actually made the jump from healthcare into mobile casual gaming. And it's been fun. And I'll always say this: no matter where you work, you can serve Jesus and share the gospel. It's about the people, and it's about your workmanship. But there was something inside me, even at Nike, and when I was at this healthcare company, and it was one of the largest healthcare companies in the world. It's a philanthropic mission. I mean, your mission is literally to heal people. So, I mean, how pure do you get? But there's just a tug. There's something inside me, like there's something more. And like here I am, and my kids are growing up. They're my littles. My oldest is 24, but my littles are 14, 12, and 10. I guess they're not so little anymore, are they? And they see me go to an office, and dad goes and sits at a desk and looks at people and talks to people, and then comes down, and like that's it. And it's like, well, I work for healthcare, and they're like, what? You don't heal people? I don't get it. So like, and there's this thing that for me, and this is me, I'm not saying this is for everyone. I'm just saying this is what the Lord is doing in my heart, is my kids had no idea what I did. And my kids wasn't doing anything really that they understood. And so anyway, when I was interviewing for different companies, and I had a heart to go to a smaller company and have more impact, and TruPlay came up. And to make a long story short, I won't tell you the whole story, but I was interviewing at a couple of different companies at the same time. I had my favorite in my heart, which was TruPlay. But it was kind of scary. It's a brand new startup. It's Christian entertainment, which is like, wait a minute, we just talked about that. Does that exist? And is that, and I had a really great job offer from a really good agency, and it was solid, it was stable, and I could have just continued my career. But one day I walked down the stairs and I said, "Hey, so I just had another interview, and they're gonna move me on to the next one." And my youngest daughter, Annabelle, she's precious. She goes, "Was it TruPlay?" And I go, "Yeah, it was." She goes, "Yes."
Oh,
And I was like, "Wait a minute, you get it." Like, and it wasn't about the video games. My family, this was a time where we were on our knees praying about what's the next step.
Yeah.
Um, and to see that in my daughter, and it's something she'll play with. Like the product I'm creating is something she'll play with. I'm finally, as a parent, I have been struggling. Like, what in the world can my kids watch that I don't have to literally be guarded and also have to fix right after they watch it?
Right.
And I don't think you should raise your children in bubbles. Like they should be confronted with what's happening in the world, but I think it should be on your terms and as much as possible. But yeah, so why did I jump ship and jump on board this train? Is It's easy. I saw my daughter and I saw like she got it, and it was something my whole family could get behind. It was answering a problem that we need to answer. Like our kids need play, and they need a place to have play that's redemptive, and screen times will be part of their world. And so we need to create redemptive screen time where they can play and have fun and learn these values. And so for me at my age, feeling what I was feeling, I could keep going down this big corporate route and have the corner office. I was being groomed for a VP role there, or I could do something and answer the call and do something that changes the world, hopefully, and join a movement.
yeah.
Like it's not just us.
Right.
Like we're TruPlay. We're going to provide something unique that we hope will be a household brand. But like there is a movement happening, and you see it. You see, we've mentioned the brands like Wing Feather and Chosen, and it's happening. And I'm like, I want in. Like, I want in. I literally didn't even apply to a job. I just wrote them a letter and said, I have to work here. I have to be part of this vision. And I'm here. So for
That's
me,
awesome.
it was easy and hard at the same time, but it was easy in the sense that I'm doing something I know like is just so meaningful and so needed.
Yeah, no, definitely. I remember as a kid, I didn't know that some of my books were Christian books. They were just high quality, and they
Mm-hmm.
were this series. It was my favorite as a kid, and I kept them. Adam Raccoon by Glenn Keane, who is a phenomenal Disney illustrator. And he felt like he just wanted to actually illustrate something that would bring Christian values to children. So he illustrated some of Jesus's parables in the form of Adam
Wow.
the raccoon. And I didn't have any clue growing up that that whole thing was Jesus parables, because even though my parents were both Christian, they couldn't agree on where to go, like what church to
Mm.
go. So I was raised in this weird amorphous Christianity kind of thing, and I had to come to it myself at 23. But then I pulled out all my books and I'm looking for when we got pregnant. So I was a Christian now, and I'm looking at these books. I'm like, whoa, some of these are Christian. And then I looked at Adam Raccoon. I was like, oh, Adam Raccoon was Christian. And sometimes that's what I want, is not just, I think sometimes we, if you're a Christian who can draw, then you need to redraw the Bible stories. If you're a Christian who can sing, go sing worship music. If you're a Christian who can act, go film some stuff for Pure Flix. And that's fine. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you're it's good to feed your own. But you can also, and this is what you're getting at, is you can do something that attracts even those who don't know anything about your own. Like C.S. Lewis and Narnia and
Yeah.
Tolkien and Lord of the Rings. Like, there's stuff in there that you're gleaning even if you don't realize that they were Christians. And we
Yeah.
don't need to have to look that far back to see those kinds of influences. I would love for them to come forward and there be stories that Christians made them. and it's not so overtly Christian that all of the unsaved kids' parents are like, no, stay away from that app. It's going to teach you to be a bigot, Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, be like, that's a great story. I want to download it, Mom. And then,
Yeah.
you know, and so I think that is what the goal can be. The vision can be, is not just something for the Christian kids that we're raising Christian, but also something that will entice the children and show them that the world doesn't have to be what they're being force fed. They can taste and see something different,
Right.
and that'll sit with them. They'll be like, what's that thing I saw that time? That felt
Mm-hmm.
different. So
No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I think that is well said. And I often think like, just because I think that the idea of doing something Christian was like, well, go be a missionary or just support a missionary, or, hey, I threw a cross on it, so it's Christian. It's like, well, no, actually, business is a godly enterprise if you do it with godly principles. And like, take just a mechanic, someone working on your car. If they do good craftsmanship, if they're, charging you the right amount and you're paying them and it's a good transaction, like that's how it's supposed to be. And like those are, whether you're a Christian or not, those are principles right out of the Bible. And so, with creatives, my daughter, if you go to my 12-year-old daughter's room, it's just plastered. She loves art. And so it's just plastered with all this art. She just puts them all over her wall. And she's enamored with TruPlay, because she's like, oh, I want to do that digitally. That looks cool. I'm like, well, we'll start with paper. Start with mechanics. But like, they're not Christian pictures.
Right.
They're like
Right.
dragons and Lord of the Rings stuff, and like, and it's like but it's beautiful.
Right.
And like God put those images there. Like he gave her those creative abilities. And it's like, when you look at things that are beautiful and structured and well done, it's like, you don't have to put a cross on it. It's beautiful. Like that's how God created us to be. And so I do encourage creatives to, like we go back to it, like you can never change the meaning of core doctrine, right? Like that doesn't mean you have creative liberty to do whatever you want. But you definitely have liberty to be creative with the gifts God gave you. And that is very much a God-given thing. And I think that's what you're getting at a little bit. Like we don't have to box ourselves into this.
Right.
Well, you have to only do it you have to label all your stuff this way or label it. And it's like, no, you can tell the story of the Bible,
Right.
through your creativity.
I'm going to say this, though. I think we boxed ourselves in when we were like, well, yeah, she draws dragons. Well, hello. I believe dragons are in the Bible.
Hey, you read the book of Job.
Right. We're like, hey, that sounds like a dragon. That's really cool. Run with it.
I think that when we sit here and we think about, because I think it all boils down to this. We see the world and we see the darkness. We see where it's going. We see, it doesn't take long for you to open your eyes. I mean, we just got canceled off of a platform. Well, actually, the platform got canceled because it didn't go with culture. It didn't go with society.
Mm-hmm.
So they shut it down. And people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Another door will open. But in my book, I was kind of like, cool. like we're a part of something that culture and society doesn't like.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that what's really cool though, with what a lot of the creatives are doing though, is that we're bringing in, and I wouldn't just say innuendos, but we're bringing in content that shows like, okay, Adam Raccoon, right? Now we can explain to our daughter how that plays along with the Bible, right? And so
she
I
actually
feel like
figured it out for herself, which is the coolest
True.
thing. When she was 3,
Yeah,
she's like, "Mommy, are we like Adam Raccoon? And is King, I think what's his name, King Aaron? Yeah, King Aaron, is he Jesus?" And I'm like, you figured it out at 3.
I love it when God reveals himself to kids.
Right.
It's
She's
like,
it
wow.
just seems that way. But yeah, continue.
So in that, do you feel like because of the liberties and being able to make content that shows it in a little different light, that's something that would stay around longer than the platforms that are just straight up, talking Bible, talking this, as society and culture starts to amp up and say, no, we don't receive what you guys believe. Do you believe that this is going to give longevity to the platforms?
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. If we kind of think about cancel culture, and if you just kind of overtly come out as like, hey, this is Christian, this is what I believe, like you're kind of at risk of like being deplatformed or whatever. And I think if you're able to portray your artwork, your creativeness in ways that are not overtly Christian, but are still telling the lessons, yeah, I think they probably will stay around longer. And I think that's good, and we need that. I would also challenge people, and this is something we say at TruPlay, like we're not heavy-handed
Right.
Right.
with it, but we're never going to pull our punch. Like,
Right.
and I think that's something that even in my own life growing up, it's I pulled too many punches. There was a time where you do have to speak the truth in love.
Right.
And so I do encourage creatives, you should create there, but don't always stay there.
Right.
Right.
Once in a while, don't
Right.
pull your punch. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. That always makes me think of like the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna preach everything like every Sunday the same message over and over. If I'm preaching the whole Bible, the whole context of the Bible, I'm going to hit different points. And well, maybe this week I just happen to have it. I think that we do get heavy-handed sometimes. Not necessarily our podcast. We kind of keep it on the challenging of a Christian, but we do get a little heavy-handed. We get so caught up that like culture is coming against
Mm-hmm.
us. It's hammering us down. That I am so thankful that we do have these things still coming out. It hasn't completely just erased. It's like,
Yeah.
like when you say 50%, but watch this. Like you said, there's a movement that's happening.
A Christian renaissance.
A Christian renaissance.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good word. Always got the good words. I love it. I love it. But it's really cool to see that you guys are doing something so awesome.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna get to talk more about this.
Yeah, we actually have someone else. We'll hold who it is until it's time. But we have someone else from TruPlay that will be jumping on in a few
Mm-hmm.
weeks. But yeah, no, I think what we've discussed today so important, not just for the Christian parent, but for the Christian who might struggle and grapple with creativity in general, and maybe a little discomfort if it's a Christian rapper, but they don't always rap John 3:16. Is it okay to listen to Lauren Daigle if she sings a love song about a guy, like, or something like that? Because you sometimes
Yeah.
get into, like you said, fundamentalist spaces. And I think that you get to Philippians 4:8. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. And in a world, I think this is why we're having a Christian renaissance. Things have gotten so ugly and upside down, so desperate, so starved, that the Christians who were, I'll just say it, being lazy and consuming the content out there couldn't bear it anymore. And they were like, what am I doing? And they started putting out whatever is good, pure, and lovely. And like
Yeah.
you said, technically, just a fox or a deer is more Christian than some of the stuff coming out, because guess who made them with his perfect engineering
Mm-hmm.
and ingenuity? The Lord.
Right.
And so everything doesn't have the cross slapped on it, the Jesus fish, right? But it's pointing to and bringing him glory. And that's what we can aim to provide for our children, for one another. And I think that is a very valiant and respectable effort and desire from anyone who's wanting to get into
And I'm
this.
gonna take this a step farther, because we're talking about Christian content, Christian people, Christian. But watch this. There are people that aren't Christian that are starved.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And they're as sick and fed up with the way things are going.
And they're going to be looking.
And they're going to be looking. And so we have an opportunity as creatives to bring a light that's different. And so it has them leaving the theater, or has them leaving an app, or has them leaving, whatever it is that they've ingested, right? Thinking like, wow, what is this about? And at the end of the day, it becomes what we've been called to do, and that's to get out there, share the gospel, and disciple people.
Yeah.
You're right. The world is starving for this, and it's not just someone who calls himself a Christian. And I've seen far too many times, and I'm guilty at times, I guess too. But I've seen far too many times where it's like, well, I don't like that. I don't like that. Those people are terrible. I hate that. Oh, that's bad.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Right.
well, what are you about? And
Right.
I think that's where that's one of the things that I know I've talked about with our leadership team is like, hey, listen, we just need to go out there and tell people what we're about. That's
There
what
you
the
go.
world needs. And that's they're hungry for it. And I would just encourage your listeners, like, go find the people, like whether it's us or whether it's Wingfeather or TruPlay, sorry, Chosen, and like these companies that are like, get behind them.
Yes.
Right. Support
Like
them.
you're not alone. Like help is
Yeah.
here, is what we're
Right.
saying. It's
Right.
like
Right.
you want it, and it's not just Christians. It's you know our previous company. We made some games 10 years ago. I wasn't there for this, but we made some games like I think it was 10 years ago, and it was explicitly a Christian game. A third of the people who played that game were not Christians.
Right.
And there's just a hunger for good, redeeming storytelling
Right.
and digital content. And it's here. Like we're building, and that's exciting. I'm excited to be part of the movement too. So yeah.
Absolutely. And like you said, support your creatives.
Yes.
Support your creatives.
Yes, you can support. Don't be afraid to. Don't expect it all to be a ministry that is just
Co-labor.
Because guess what a ministry is? Something that runs on donations. So you can either donate or pay, but put your money where your prayer hands are. Give it back to the people.
And what he's saying, it costs money.
Yeah.
People, we tell people all the time, we're like, yeah, you know that this costs us about $2,000 a
Blows
year
their mind.
just to sit here in front of a couple lights, right?
Mhm.
And it's like it's a couple $1,000s a year, and it's like, so hey, get out there, co-labor. It is awesome talking to you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Matt.
so much. I think that there's a lot of good takeaways on this.
Yeah.
And we're thankful for you. Is there anything, a shout out, a thought that you want to leave everybody with, something just to ping them with before you go?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Shay and Michelle, for having me. My wife, she listened to your podcast. She's like, I like that. And if my wife likes you, it's like you're in.
Yay. We'll have her on.
Yeah, there you go. Talk about homeschooling with her. It's
Yes.
like, what's it like to homeschool and feel totally overwhelmed and underwater?
There
Look,
you go. That's perfect.
That's exactly that's the title right there.
There you go. I'll leave you with this, and the audience with this is it's happening. Like help is here, and it's happening. I love Christian Renaissance, whatever you want to call it. There is a movement. It's happening. So get excited, like parents. Like I know you're starving. We're here. Like people are doing it, and that's exciting to me. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you so much for being here, joining in on this conversation. For everybody listening, you can go to TruPlayGames.com. That's TRUPlayGames.com. Go ahead and download and check out what they are baking in their oven. As for us, you can support us at patreon.com/The Pantry Podcast and check us out at thepantrypodcast.com. So until next time,
Bye.
bye.